two big topics at the moment are still digital transformation and agile transformations, or becoming more adaptive, which means changing the org design, the operating model, and the structure. So good, we've got it all here. Technology, has grown from 12 to 1200. So also, kind of scaling up organizations. Awesome, thank you. So, and interestingly, a lot of these transformations are not successful. There has been some research in 1995 by the Godfather of Change, John Kotter, who found out then that 70% of transformations are failing. And it's interesting the research that I found on HBR in 2023 found that still 67% of leaders report that their experience at least one underperforming transformation in the last 5 years. So it seems we still have a lot to learn when it comes to how to lead and how to go through transformations. So the question is, why do actually transformations fail? You've probably gone through some transformations in the past. So what's your experience of why do they not go well? If you could please write a few kind of keywords in the chat. Yeah, lack of alignment, exactly, the underestimation of extent. Yeah, no, change management in place, but short-sighted because it needs to be bigger. Resistance to change. Yeah, how we manage our unclear goals, which is also clear. Yeah, measurements, sometimes we don't even know what we want to achieve. Poor communication. Yes, designing the structure around the reduced workload. Workload is a big thing. Managers themselves, they play an important role. Yes, all of what you're writing and too much going on. So yeah, there are lots of different studies, and from the big strategy consultancies like McKinsey or Deloitte or EY. And but what they all have in common, that's also what you've already played back, is it's a lack of commitment. It's leadership that plays a big role. There's often a lack of commitment within leadership, a lack of communication. What are the goals? How do we go about it? What are we doing next? Resistance, of course, is a big topic because we need to leave our comfort zone, try something differently. And oftentimes when we think about transformations, it's not only new processes or new tools or a new operating model, it's also the cultural fit. We need to change our behaviors, our mindsets, so that the transformation can actually be sustainable. And change fatigue. Oh, yes. Yeah. Sounds like, oh, change fatigue. Yes, definitely. For sure. It feels like we're constantly in a set of waves of different change initiatives, different transformations. And it almost seems like we don't have any time to kind of catch our breath and get our energies back so that we can continue working and going through transformations. And then we get to a state like that. You might have seen that comic before, Who Wants to Change? Yeah. And then Who Wants to Lead the Change? Yeah. So kind of the resistance, like, oh yeah, I'm actually not so committed to it. So how can we then go about it? And today I would like to talk about the human side of change, because the emotions of the people involved in the change or in a transformation are really crucial and very important that we get this right, and that we are prepared, that we get the storm of different emotions and not surprised, and then as leaders can really get the right things in place. Yeah, so kind of how do we get through these ups and downs? And there's also a big need to understand that we have to stay resilient and sane, because it takes a big toll on us. And it's usually a long journey. It's not a sprint. Transformations are marathons. So what is it that we can do to stay resilient? Okay, so what are actually the 7 steps for successful transformations, or what are some of the success factors? And again, if you research the studies and the different surveys, you get lots of different opinions on that. But what I found quite interesting in the latest one by EY together with the University of Oxford is that they found that the most important thing is to lead the emotional transformation. As you can see, address the unsustainable status quo means, you need to get out of this comfort zone. You need to embrace ambiguity, develop that vision, and then include both the rational and the emotional. And that's quite interesting because oftentimes we've got a big focus on the project management. What are the milestones? What are the KPIs? And we forgot the soft things around the emotions, involving people and really dealing with the emotions, and not kind of putting them in a department and just saying like, hey, let's get going. Let's go through let's go through all of the stuff. And what they found in their research is that 52 of the respondents of successful transformation said that their organization gave them the emotional support that they needed during that time. And that's a big thing because emotions are usually, as long as they're not positive, are usually not kind of seen in the workplace. Oftentimes we say, we keep the emotions at home, but we don't bring them to the workplace. But in fact, since we're spending so much time at work, we really need to focus on these emotions. So that's why I would like to get through the change curve and to be aware, emotions cannot be managed. Yeah, exactly. Thanks, Greg, from that. Behaviors can be managed, but we can kind of manage our response to emotions. So that's something I would really like to focus on today. What are some of the different responses we can take when we lead through transformation? So let's get a little bit of understanding of what kind of emotions, take place or come up during a transformation. And what I really, it's an oldie, but it's a goodie. That Change Curve by Elizabeth Kubler-Ross has been, I think, developed in the 70s, but it's still valid because it shows how performance changes over time when we go through a transformation or a change. So it starts kind of at a status quo, a given performance, or you can also say mood, and it goes through a trough, the so-called valley of tears. And when you're going up the other side of that curve, you start to kind of experiment, adapt to change until you've got it internalized. So it takes some time. And it looks different for different people. Sometimes the valley of tears is quite low. Sometimes people go faster through a change curve. It's all very much dependent on the individual. But for me, it's still a good model to really understand what is the variety of emotions we are dealing with. And I also like to put on top a model that's called the 4 rooms of change, because it gives you an easy way to understand in which room are we currently in a transformation or in terms of our emotions. So you've got the room of contentment where we all start. It's our comfort zone. And then we get into when performance decreases. And we show first signs of resistance. We are in that room of resistance. Once we've passed that valley of tears, we're in the room of confusion, and then we get into the room of renewal. And I would like to talk to each of the rooms and talk about the different emotions that are coming up and what we can do as leaders. So yeah, room of contentment. It's the room of habit. We know what we do, we know what we are working on, and we feel good about it. And then at some point, the bomb, the bomb comes in that something is changing. We're getting into a transformation. It's usually an information that we hear about, a town hall, and then we get this mix of different emotions. Some people are surprised, even shocked. Why are we doing this? Why is that coming now? Some people are excited, and lots of people are nervous, and kind of nervous and really worried and wondering what is going to happen. There's also a little bit of apathy when you think like, maybe it's not coming. So I once worked in a merger of an acquisition of two pharmaceutical companies. And when they heard about this merger between these companies, a lot of them thought, but we are kind of the number one leader in the market. It's probably not going to happen. And then what happens is, just people pretend nothing has happened, and they kind of go on about it and blanking it out. So that was actually quite interesting with this organization, that a lot of the leaders who we worked with said, it's probably not going to happen. And they were just staying in that room of contentment and not making the first move. So that's kind of the first thing you want to do. You need to create that sense of urgency in that first room, because you do want people to move out of this room. Although, once they move out of this room, the performance is going down, which is usually not what we want, but we have to move. We have to shift into this other room. Because if we don't, and I've heard this often when I asked organizations that are going through a change, it's like, did you have an information? Did you have a town hall? What are people thinking about the change? Have you informed? And then I get the feedback, we've had this conversation and everyone is fine. There were no questions. I was like, so there's no resistance. Everyone is fine. And it's like, okay, but then that means people still haven't understood, and they're still hoping that nothing's going to change. So you really need to move into this unpleasant room of resistance. So how do you get there? And this is where, when you lead change or transformation, you are, first of all, you're also someone who's impacted of the change. So you're also going through this roller coaster of emotions. And you've got a lot of questions yourself. So try to inform yourself, because you also need to process that information. And at the same time, whilst you are still struggling to process that information, people you work with, your teams, are coming to you and asking you all of these questions. And the norm is you don't know much more than them. I'd love to know how many people have been in an org transformation which they experience as successful. Yeah, that's a great question, Rebecca. Thank you. And please feel free to kind of write in the chat if you've been through an kind of successful transformation. So, the balance you need to keep in this room is being accessible and communicate with your teams, and also while still, being able to manage your own emotions and stay patient. So at the moment, I'm working with another organization which is taking quite a lot of time for their transformation, and information is only released bit by bit. And it's really, really difficult for a lot of people to stay patient, because it's been going over such a long time and they're constantly worried. So manage your emotions and communicate, and yeah, just try to stay on top of things. So once you're out of this this room, which was actually quite a cozy room, you're getting into this room of resistance. And I'm curious, when you think of resistance, and you've probably experienced some of these emotions yourself or from your colleagues, what are usually some of the emotions you get in this room? Please, if you've got any ideas, please put into the chat what that is. How can you show your resistance if you're really not aligned? Yeah, angry, frustration, anger, the 7 stages of grief, feeling disconnected, lost. Yes. Yeah, all good. Yeah. Confusion. It's a big mix of emotions. Protective. Yeah, absolutely. And scared. Even if there's no talk about job loss, that's still a fear that a lot of people have. Yeah, being threatened, negative. Yeah, passive aggressive. Some are there are different types of emotions, like more the silent ones. Yeah, you've got people who are withdrawing, and then you've got the loud voices. You've got this whole range, rebellious. Yeah, and torn between different attitudes. Yeah, thank you. So what you are dealing here with is fear of loss, and that can have many different phases. Loss, the fear of losing your job, the fear of losing the status you're having. Just think of all the different reorganizations. A lot of people lose their status, they lose their networks, they lose their bosses, they might lose their knowledge. The things, the way you've done things in the past may not be applicable in the future. So all of your knowledge, which then leads to lots of insecurity questions, complaints, and that's when performance goes down. Yeah, because of all of the reasons and emotions you've noted before. Yeah, positive members are influenced. Yeah, so it's kind of, you've got some positive ones, you've got negative ones. So that's where you're going through all of these waves, and it's a high risk of burnout. Absolutely. So that's a very unpleasant room to be in. And here, the main challenge is deal with the resistance, not push it away, and channel, because it's coming from different sources. And even if you feel that resistance because of a certain reason, doesn't mean that someone else does. So really finding out where's the resistance coming from and what are the reasons. And the main thing here is, and that's so hard. Yeah. It's embrace. You're saying it, Greg, embracing a big ambiguity. When you think of the Contentment model, you're here in this very complex room. You don't really, there are lots of unknowns, especially when it comes to transformation. There is no silver bullet solutions. Solutions are emerging, and just being able to hold that space for ambiguity is very difficult for a lot of us, because we are often socialized as knowing and having the solutions, and all of a sudden we don't have. And the other thing is having conversations with people who are angry, frustrated, depressed, sad is difficult. But this is really the main job of the leader in this situation, to be there and talk to people and to listen. You won't be able to solve anything, but you're there and you can hold the space and give them the space to vent, to rant, to ask their questions, or to just, let go and talk about their feelings, which is super difficult, because often we are not trained in responding responding in the right way to these kind of emotions. So oftentimes it's okay to be just there and listen, yeah, and give time to people, and then understand where's some of the fear coming from. Understanding, is it fear of loss? Is it fear of, oh, I'm too old? Yeah, maybe I don't know how to deal with all of these agile processes when we think of an agile transformation. So just understanding, where's that fear coming from? Yeah, holding space. Yeah, you don't have to have the answers. You're just there. Having that empathy. And in this route, it's super important there to also be aware of your own emotions and energy, because it's draining. It's really draining to listen to a lot of negativity and be able to process. So here you do want to, and maybe that sounds we all know that, do stuff that is good for you so you can recharge your batteries, being it's exercise, sleep, and you also need someone you talk to. Yeah. Either being it in your, a friend, a family member, your boss, whoever, but you also need someone to talk to and who listens to you. Okay. So, and I've got maybe one story. When I worked with these two companies, it was actually GlaxoSmithKline and Novartis, and I was working with the IT department, and I was talking to one of the IT engineers who had been there for, I think, almost 20 years, and he said to me in this workshop, look, I've been in that room of resistance for a long, long time. And because I really loved my job here. I really loved the company, and all of a sudden that merger is coming up when we're going together with this other company, with GSK, and I just realized so much is going to change for me and my job is gone. And he said, a few weeks ago, I was sitting in my manager's office and I was crying. So he was in that valley of tears. He said that was the moment he realized the job of 15 or 20 years is gone. But he said for him, that was actually the turning point where he kind of let go of the past and was then open to engage with new people and to actually engage with the change. And he said, and then he was pointing across the room and he said, but my boss, he's still in that room of resistance, which makes it really difficult for me, because I would actually like to have someone who also energizes me and who kind of points me into the right direction, but he's still in his own world. And that's a big thing, because for leaders in this room, you do want to go quicker through this room than anyone else, so that you can actually give guidance. Because if you're still dealing with your own emotions a lot, it's hard to give that energies to others. Yeah. Okay, so let me continue. Then we get into this room of confusion, where we have lots of different emotions again. Hopeful, being exhausted, motivated, inspired. So it's this warm, cold of emotions. Being stressed, there's this extra workload, doing things differently, while probably still needing to, deliver to objectives and, doing the work. And it's this time of, when you go 2 steps ahead and 1 back, because a lot of things are just not working at first, when you do them the first time. So you suffer from a lot of, setbacks when you're trying out new things, because you need to learn them. Maybe you do want to try too many things at once, which then leads to that change fatigue and being just overwhelmed. And in that room, you still carry a lot of the feelings of loss. So you still haven't, kind of done the, you're still in that emotional struggle of, the past was really nice. So I wonder, when you think of that room of confusion, where a lot of processes, and new ways of workings are still unclear, you maybe not have the right skills and capabilities, and there's a lot of, too busy stuff. So what do you think people would need from a leader in this room, or how should a leader in this room lead? Yeah, curious to hear a few thoughts in the chat, and I'm really stoked by your engagement in the chat. It's almost hard, I'm trying to keep up. Be aware of the brain function and cortisol. Yes, yeah. Honesty and transparency, vulnerability. Yeah, sure. That's so important. Yeah, because as leaders, we also don't get it right. We make a lot of mistakes, and just sharing that with the team is very, very important. So in this room, we do need a lot of support, and support in many different ways. Support in kind of resources, but also in terms of resources and emotional support. Again, and here, when we're in this business agility meetup, and we know a lot about exploring, testing, and learning, and that's actually the space to do it, and to have that space where we need to explore what works and what doesn't work, and have that psychological safety. We learn, and we do definitely make a lot of mistakes, but we need to also be able to address what's wrong and what's not working yet. And I've got one example from an agile transformation where we worked with an organization to set up their center of excellence. And we had a really great project manager or product owner. And what he did, we explored so much. We went through different types of sprints. We used different tools for our sprints. We started with Miro, and then the team decided, oh, now we need something else. Let's go into Jira. On some others said, okay, let's try Jira for a while. Maybe Trello is a better place. And we constantly experimented with different ways of working. And the product owner just gave us that space. And also in this, what we also did is we had to build the different skills and competencies. Yeah, of course you make mistakes, but you do need this kind of, some foundational support. And when you think of agile transformations, just having some agile foundations, having facilitation skills, coaching skills, whatever is needed. Yeah, so just providing that is super important. And still adjust and adapt. There's still lots of things that aren't figured out, and you constantly need to adapt to it. And we said again, role model. You need to role model in this space. And again, the guy we had in this that product owner, he was just role modeling vulnerability. And I was always saying, one of his favorite quotes was, I'm starting to feel more comfortable with feeling uncomfortable. And that was a great permission for everyone to be able to feel uncomfortable. And energizing and celebrating. Think of that marathon analogy. You do need to recharge your batteries. And what he did, that was just before Christmas, when everyone was so burned out from the transformation. He created that lovely Miro board with different presents, and he had kind of virtual presents, and he had different presents for different people. So time to spend with person X and something for another person, which was super individual and was just celebrating the success of the, and he also created a slideshow of everything that we had achieved over this first 6 months, which was great. So just energizing, yeah, kind of, because you still have a long way to go and you're just on that uphill. And then finally you get into this room of renewal, again, mix of emotions, you know, contented. But one I would like to point out is, you know, people are just proud of being there. Yeah. And then it's the time to be kind of focused, being able to be focused on that work, more relaxed, because there have been a lot of learnings, and that sense of achievement when you know it's like, wow, we are on that uphill and we've done such a great job so far. And yeah, and just being aware of what your own strength and capabilities are and what you've learned over the last journey. Yeah, so that's the room of renewal. And what happens quite often here is reinforcing, you know, it's declaring victory too quickly. Yeah, we've achieved it and now we're doing something else and we're going back to normal or something else. What happens is, if we are not kind of adjusting other things that are in there, you know, that needs to be adjusted, it's so easy to fall back into habits, to slip down that curve and get back into the room of resistance. So reinforcing change is very, very important here. Yeah, and here again, the problem here is that leaders can go back to complacency and old habits. It's a journey, not a destination. Yeah. The room is also trapped because, like the others will, yes, and that's so true. We are all, and that's something we always need to remember. We are not reaching this room together. We are along that change curve individually in different points of time. So some might already be there, whereas others are still struggling and be somewhere else. And it's just that is so important to not become impatient. And I know there's a lot about calling out, you know, who isn't on the bus yet needs to leave the bus. And I think it's important to understand, we already have a crucial number of people to keep up the performance. Do we have, maybe we do need these people to come along and we just give them a little bit more time. So there is no silver bullet solutions how to deal with people who haven't gone on the bus. I'm always under that, you know, I always say, look, you know, work with the people who are there. You can also work with people who are not yet committed. As long as they're not sabotaging, I think it's okay. And you can watch it over some time and then decide, yeah, patience. Yeah, absolutely. So in that last room, again, it's so important that you appreciate what everyone has achieved. And maybe you've heard my German accent. As a German, we don't celebrate and we don't kind of praise so much, but it's so important to just celebrate what everyone has achieved and how much more effort people have put in, and facilitate the learnings. Yeah, it's so, because once you've reached that room, it doesn't mean now you can stop for half a year or a year. We are in constant change and we're in constant transformation. As some people have already commented, it's a journey. So you need to put into this kind of reflection retrospective. What is it that we have learned? What is it that has worked well? What is it that we can kind of put into our backpack of capabilities that will help us through, going through future transformations. So it's this whole growth mindset. We always talk about growth mindset, but that's when it really comes into fruition. We do need to, make new networks. When you think of transformations that affect the structures in the operating model, we do often work in different teams and different constellations. So anything that fosters collaboration so that we can, build this human glue again is super important. And we also need that collaboration to still figure out what are some of the adjustments we need to make. And again, recharge your batteries. And I'm bringing this up and again because it's something that we just oversee, and we think we can work. And I've seen a lot of people being burned out. And if we watch our batteries a little bit more during that journey, that will really help us to be sustainable and to really go through a transformation. And the last one, keep your antennas up and your radar on, is something that I learned from actually the Leadership Academy from the Ritz-Carlton hotels. They use that saying for their employees because they always want them to be super alert about the guests' needs. And if you take that into the organizational context, and you think of an adaptive or an agile organization, you always need to be aware of what needs adjustment, what needs to where do we need change, and just being aware that it's constantly going on. Okay, so I think I would like to, I think we've got a good good ground covered, and I would actually really like to take some time to answer a few questions, if there are any, before I'm going on to my last slide. And Tanya, it's finishing at 10 minutes to 9, isn't it? Yeah, okay. Now we've got a good timing. Yeah, so any questions that you might have. Yeah, please write in the chat or come off mute if that's possible, Tanya.
There's some really good comments throughout. Let's see. Oh, here's a question now at the end. What is the best way to create change with leaders?
Yeah. So I'm translating the questions, like how do you get leaders onto that journey, building the capabilities. I found it quite useful in the past to make leaders aware of what is actually happening, from the emotional side, and to prepare them how they can deal with these emotions. In terms of giving feedback, holding that space, listening, and also give them the space to have a room where they can address their worries and their concerns. Because oftentimes they need to be like, I need to be strong. I must not show that I've got fears on my own. And what usually works really well is a format, a 4-quadrant format that I use in workshops when I let people address, what are the risks, and what kind of risks and opportunities do you see? What are your hopes and what are your concerns for that change, so that they can process. So that usually works. And then coaching, helping them through difficult situations, giving them, informing them beforehand, so that they have got a little bit information before everyone else has, because they're usually the ones who need to address the questions. Hope that answers your question. So what else have we got?
Wellington has his hand up, Astrid. Wellington, do you want to come off mute?
Yeah, cool.
Okay,
still on mute? Yes, thanks.
I'm out now. Thank you. Astrid, thank you for your presentation. Given the importance of people in transformation and the justification for change, what sort of metrics do you think would be important to consider as part of the journey? Any metrics you recommend?
Kind of to kind of find out metrics. It's difficult. It's you definitely want to have some kind of leadership pulse, or kind of a change pulse. And oftentimes it makes sense to check in the change readiness. Do people feel they've got the right skills and capabilities? Do they understand the why? That's one that I'm always surprised that the lack of kind of communication in the beginning leads to that people don't understand the story. So if you Google change readiness, you find a whole list of different metrics. And the best way is to do short surveys, not the 20-question surveys that people just hate to fill out. And they hate to fill it out even more if you don't come back with any actions based on the data you've just got from them. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, it does. It does. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Wellington. Okay. It's location.
Okay, Natasha has a question about how do you I'm gonna put it in my own words, Natasha, because I can't find it in the chat now, but it was along the lines of how do you
protect
manage
yourself?
the negativity? Or Natasha, do you want to come off? It's the negativity. How do you protect yourself from the negativity of others?
Yeah. Oh, yeah, that's a big one.
It's a good one, yeah.
And again, it comes down to your energy levels. I've got a family life, and when there's lots of stuff and stress going on in the workplace, and then I come home and there's more stress, I'm just overreacting, especially when there's a lot of negativity. So I would say, apart from keeping your energy levels up and go outside, go for a walk, is surround yourself with people who are positive, and just go into these conversations with these people. You don't need to, how do I phrase this in a good way? It's okay for them to feel that way. Yeah. You can't change their opinion. You can, the only thing is that you can do is you can be curious and you listen. But if you feel that it's taking over, you can also say, look, just distance yourself in that moment. Yeah, if it's getting too much. It's definitely a tough one. More people who are positive, watching your kind of making sure that you're okay and not feeling bad about other people's emotions, so that you're like, oh, I'm feeling really bad for them because they're depressed or negative. You can only change yourself, but you can't change others. Hope that helps a little bit.
Now, Astrid, Alan just wondered if he said he sees a lot of crossover with the modern Agile values in this, and wondered if you took that into consideration when you developed this.
No, but it does make sense, the Agile values. It's so amazing. I mean, they are so clear, and they provide guidance for so many different situations. When you think of make safety a prerequisite. Absolutely. Yeah. When you think of providing people with a space to explore, it's the experiment and learn and make people awesome. Yeah, it's you know, we are not transforming to make things worse. We are actually transforming to make things better. And I think the Agile values will definitely guide the transformation. Yeah. But they need to be operationalized, if that makes sense. So if they're just these 4 values, I think you need to translate them into what does it actually mean, make people awesome. Yeah. What is it that we need to do? Yeah. Okay. What else have we got?
Okay. Yeah, there's another good one here from Pankaj. I hope I pronounced that correctly, Pankaj. And it's a really good one that we all face. So when you're dealing with a set mindset, not just an individual, but you've got like a whole group of people that prefer things a different way. How do you deal with that?
Oh, yeah. Different ways. So the easiest is to address individuals in this group. So it's really hard to address people in a group, because there you've got a lot of groupthink, and people tend to then need to defend their opinions or their perspectives. So you've got an easier and better access to people if you've got a one-on-one conversation. Again, it does actually help to let them talk to people who've gone through a similar situation and faced the similar challenges, and then describe how they have overcome some of the challenges. When you think of because usually people don't want to hear from consultants how great, or the Agile kind of evangelists, how great things would be or could be. It's much better if they hear from someone they can relate to, someone who's gone through something different, similar. Yeah.
Astrid, it's Dean from Customer Care here. Look, I'm thinking when facing similar situations, I think if you're a leader and you know your team, you probably know who those key people are, who your influencers and those kind of people are. So if you kind of target those ones and get them on board, that can certainly help shift the group mindset, I find.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And you do want to look for these so-called informal leaders, who have been around for a long time and who've got the trust of their peers. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, thank you.
Okay, well, hey, Astrid, I think that's probably all the time that we have for questions now, but thank you so much. This was really informative and really helpful for me, I know, and I hope it was for everybody else. And thank you all for joining us, and we look forward to seeing you at the next Business Agility New Zealand meetup. Thank you all so very much, and we hope to see you at the next meetup. Thanks, Astrid.
Thanks a lot. Thanks, Tanya. Thanks,
Bye.
everyone.